Psalm 1954. If you'll remember, his country had no antecedent. It was simply a piece of real estate lying south of some 17th parallel. When you take over a piece of real estate like that and begin to rule, who are your police? Who is your army? Who are your generals and who are your sergeants? Where is your power? This is important. Where is your power? Ed Lansdale, probably one of the best agents the agency ever set in motion, came over from the Philippines, where he had created a man named Magsaysay as president of the Philippines. Pretty good job as far as that went. And he brought his team with him to Saigon. I happened to be pilot on that airplane. Went into Saigon with the same, what we used to call in quotes, Robin Hood technique, that if you can fool the people, you can fool the people. And Diem was created by a secret police trained by special forces, the Green Berets. In those days, I don't think they wore the Green Berets, because I'm talking about 55, 56, 57. And Diem owed his existence at that time to two clever maneuvers. One was the rapid placement of a good secret police, and secondly, the purchase of an army. Because if you remember, there were two armies in Cholon that were more or less mercenaries, and they purchased the army. Now, as long as Diem had that backing, he was in pretty good shape. By the summer of 1963, a summer that we all could write about and research about a lot more. That was a very important summer. There were papers coming across my desk. At that time, I was working in the office of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Papers with no top secret stamps on them, no eyes only stamps on them, no register numbers on them. That meant they were really secret, because if they're really secret, you don't put anything on them. And a man would come up to you and he'd say, "Have you seen this?" And it would say, "We've had enough of Diem, what are we going to do about him?" Well, just that idea means that it won't be long till bullets are flying. Because what happens in Saigon? Somebody like Lou Conine is told, "Hey, go check out the generals. Find out which general could take over the job. General Bigmin or Nagayan Khan or Key not ready, but Khan or Min might be ready. Check them out." The minute you tell people that in a city like Saigon, you could do it today. The minute you tell people that, they go back to their sources of power and they say, "You know what? The United States is changing its policy." And it was changing its policy. And so they could stand on a stack of Bibles. In fact, Chuck Colson and Howard Hunt tried to rewrite the stack of Bibles to prove that it was Kennedy that said, "Shoot him." But nobody in Washington said, "Shoot Diem." You don't do an assassination that way. The way people are assassinated is by taking away the power that had been created to keep them there. It's a lot easier that way. More interest to me than a genealogy of Lee Harvey Oswald and all the rest is, who said, "Let's go to Dallas, Jack"? I understand that Kenny O'Donnell feels real bad about it. I understand that Bobby Kennedy had said from time to time he wished he'd have put his foot down. Jerry Bruno, the greatest advanced man in politics, went there, but did Jerry Bruno pick the route? Maybe Mark can tell you. Who did? Who decided, "Let's go to Dallas"? You've been to Fort Worth, you got to go to Dallas. That's important, because whoever decided that knew some things. I have worked with the Secret Service in their good work to keep presidents alive. I went to Mexico City when Eisenhower was going down in 1956. And I'll tell you, the Secret Service knows the game, like the guerrillas in France knew the game. They can keep the president alive. Where were they? How does it happen you can have a 6-story building with a lot of empty floors, and they neither wired and sealed the doors as their manual says they will, nor had anybody on the roof with high-powered guns and with radios as their manual says they will, or had a man in Dealey Plaza to look at the man at the roof and to look at the windows as their manual says there will. And if you don't drive over 44 miles an hour, a nice figure, but it works out in tests, why did they bring that car down to a crawling speed? Those are more important to me than the genealogy of Lee Harvey Oswald and everybody else on the grassy knoll. I think I'll stop there. That's what I call the anatomy of assassinations. It gets you thinking, you know. Well, thank you very much.